I'll just keep it quick for what I want to see and what I think is important, and then we'll go into the details. So we're going to see our next week here. It should be about 151.20 right here. So what I'm expecting, or what I'd like to see, is two things. So if we do start above this, I think we are going to push up and we'll recover a decent amount, and then maybe on another week we'll continue upwards. We could just push up on this week. It's definitely possible. I think it's more likely we do something like this and then something like this. We're going to still have to contend with some of these areas, which we'll be able to see in a moment. Like this actually could be like a little bit higher somewhere around here. And we'll kind of see more of the specifics of what I'm talking about this in a second. And then for bearishness, if we do start under here, I expect bearishness. So, and we'll see on the 4 hour where we left off yesterday. Pretty much what I was saying is anything that starts in here is like in between. Anything that starts up here is bearish. Anything that starts here is bearish. And then we saw boom, boom, boom. So they weren't able to push down at the end of the beginning of the day. One of the things I thought possible is if we started here, maybe we could push all the way down to here. We needed to break under. After the 4 hour 30 switch, it seemed a little less likely, mainly because if you remember what we were saying on the last video, if not, you can always refer to it. I was expecting more or less the week time frame to try to end somewhere within this range so that they could fight, not so much post, but more so maybe post, but post and pre-market to get this above this area. If we look at it from the perspective of bears, we don't want to pretty much move down here and end this far down, because it's just a lot of pressure to then move down again. And so for me, I think if we did push down here and started, then we just push back up, and I don't think that's really good for any long-term bears. So we were somehow, not necessarily the way I thought it would have went. The start, yes, but the middle and all that was kind of weird. But we did end up in this area, so I think that's where the real fight is. And if we look where we're expecting this, 150, 120, I can kind of get a little bit more into detail. Whoops. Well, that's 3 cents under, but it's fine. So we're going to revert back to the 4 hours. That's what's around here. So if we do start under, there's a couple things that could happen. So if we do start somewhere in this area, we will have the 4 hour right here. So I do think there's a possibility if we do start in this area, either possibly take a position here. It's possible, but I would more so expect us to come up a little bit more just because the VIX is pretty overheated. I think we hit 31 something. We can check that in a little bit. So I would expect the VIX to still come back down a little bit, which would make sense with this pushing up. So if we do start under in this area or kind of pick up where we left off, where I think the real short would be was this is where the week would be, essentially 150, 120. And it would be if we find rejection here or we come up essentially either in this place or this place. And when we turn back around here, that would be the entry point for it to move back down and move back down pretty hard. So I think there's still a chance for a lot of the market to get wrecked. I think it looks better than not right now that we will reverse. Um, I don't think there's a lot really to gain for the market to go down. I think there's a lot of bad stuff for everyone and everywhere in the world where the market goes down. Everything's pretty overheated. The Japanese yen gets wrecked, all that kind of issues as well. There's just a lot of real life issues outside of trading, in my opinion, that occur right now if all the markets drop. So I personally would like to see them go up. It's not copium what I'm saying. This is actually still what I believe and what I see. So just keep it simple. Like I said, I'd like to see us start above here in this area. This looks really nice for support. I think we will win out, even though we have this 4 hour here, because we didn't hit it today. We do have this gap right here. I would have felt a lot worse about this in the morning if we actually did come up and touch. So for what it's worth, it is nice that it only came up a little bit before it started pushing down. And yeah, if we start here, maybe the next entry point, you could do a little bit here, something like this right here. When we come above, obviously it's not going to be on this day. It's going to be over here on the 26th. But essentially, an entry point if we do start above, and then here also. And then if the day starts here, we can see this develop a lot more with the day, and it starts making a lot more sense with the day. With the 4 hours, it's a little bit sketchy. But with the day time frame, we can really see how determinate this line can be for the direction that we do take. Or it's a pretty decent amount of support. So obviously we end here. We want to see it start above the next day, but we can see generally if we're above it, we stay above it more or less. And once we start under it relatively closely too, we usually start trending back down. So that's something else I think to look for at the same time. I think that kind of puts it in the easiest way. Everything else should be the same. The NASDAQ and all those, the 4 hours the closest. So if we were to kind of say where the 4 hour might come up to, maybe 3.6% on the NASDAQ. The SPY, maybe 5% on the SPY until it gets back to the 4-hour. The Dow Jones, I think the day's closer than the 4-hour, so that's a little deceptive, I believe. Nah, they're about the same. So maybe 5%. I don't know why the NASDAQ seems like, I guess because the NASDAQ was off such a cliff. One thing that will be nice, though, is if we assume like the SPY and the Dow go back up 5%, that will then bring the NASDAQ back above this 4-hour, which these 4 hours have been fairly strong. I don't want to pay attention to this too much because this is like the Fed stuff, so that's kind of like whatever. But we can see here, we can see it doing some stuff here, and then we can see it over here. Pretty nice stuff, and then this coming into this reversal right here, starting barely above, which is very, very beautiful. So that's pretty much that with those. Here, I think we could still come down a little bit more. There was the possibility if we didn't end up here, or I guess we can show this from the beginning of the day, what happened. We can also see that we started fairly close, which was nice. We didn't start exactly here, but I think it started close enough to kind of signal that the VIX at least was going to shoot up quite a bit. If we want to kind of look at this, we could just assume maybe this is the top for the head for now. So we can do like shoulder, maybe head. So we could see something come down here. Here, we could see stuff cooling off quite a bit. So we'll kind of see what happens with that. And I will say in one other perspective with Apple, even if we do push up and have a reversal, we do have some of these areas that are still somewhat of importance. So we can see both of the 4 hours converging here at 155.50. We also have 155.57 right about in the same area. We do have this fib level, which has been known to be fairly strong also as well. So there's a lot of other things that can give us issues. I do think with kind of like what's been going on, if we do start in a nice place, like if we start under this and push through, we hit here maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, I would imagine we probably turn around if we do start under again. But I think if we really do start under, it's more likely that we just kind of get wrecked here and then we can't come up. So I think starting under or above will be pretty determinant. As we can just see from here, there is a lot of stuff going on here. We do have like these gaps here, which is kind of what it is every time it came down. And it's kind of interesting that we have this gap here and it didn't push back. It ended up pushing up, and we had this gap here and it ended pushing, and maybe it ends up pushing back up this time also as well. But what we can see is from here, and then we can see also in the daytime around 157. It should be a little bit lower, but we can see right here, 156.90, whatever. We can see this also as well. So this is another interesting area if we can get there. So if we can start back in it, we can almost look at this as our range with maybe a 165 top to a 156 bottom, though it does make more sense that it would take a week maybe to come here. I could see come back to these areas, maybe like 155.70. You can see even without knowing the fibs there, we can just see that it's a pretty big area in that level, or it's pretty big level in this area or whatever. It's whatever. I know it sounds redundant when I say it, so I don't know why it sounds wrong. But that's kind of what I'm looking for there, and I think it's pretty nice for the fact that we ended here gives us the chance. So we get both a bullish and a bearish chance. I think it's more bullish than bearish, also because we didn't break through in the beginning of the day, and so we have this higher low. So that could be something that plays into here. That's why I would like to see something that, if it does start under, turns back around and then taking that position under if we do turn around, and that does look like something that is going to get like completely shreked. So that's always a possibility. It looks better than not that it'll go up. And then I guess we can check Bitcoin. So Bitcoin right now, what I'd be looking for Bitcoin, I think the market's ended in a nice place. I don't think there's any reason. So maybe we see a deviation from Bitcoin here. I'm not really sure in that perspective, but just going with the standard, as we can see here, I mean, I like this uptrend for what it is. I think it looks really nice. This is where it's going to start. So what we'd be looking for is a start on the new day tonight at 18,934 or slightly above. We can see in these other places, if we start too high, right, we usually expect that we're going to come back down to test. So we could end somewhere up here, but I would expect it at least to come back down to test or somewhat near to test within maybe, I don't know, $30 or something like that. I mean, $30 is what here, so that's still kind of high. Maybe within like $15, $20, maybe $30. But I would still expect it. And it looks very reasonable with where all of this stuff is right now for us to push and then start over here and then have a really nice base point. We get this lower low from where we are, very stable step up, and then we get some nice price action starting around the top of this whole time frame. So maybe we'll get something like here on the 17th that'll push up. That'll be pretty interesting. So I think that's pretty much it for a lot of these. There's not really too much else, I think, to go in. Some things we could look at that could be decent. So Ethereum could be really decent here, Ethereum to Bitcoin. I believe there is something that should be coming down on this pretty hard, though. So there is something in this area that is kind of note. It's just this trend line that we have coming down here. It seems that it's been fairly determinate of what's going on, but it could be a useful thing to see what happens when we go up. So what can we expect possibly on the day here with Ethereum to Bitcoin? Just draw, well, if my lines weren't horrible, just trying to extend this for a second. If we can end just right around in this area, pretty much at 0.069141 or slightly above, I mean, this looks great to try to push up and attack some of these higher up areas. It's going to have some issue here, but if we can push up, I don't see why not. But I'd like to see something in this manner being reflected around both of these trend lines. But we could see a really great entry point at the beginning of the day, so that's really nice. Another notable one, even though it's a little bit late for it, because I don't check all these all the time, would be Doge. So Doge is cooling off a bit. If we just look at it from this perspective, we can see some similarities a little bit to when we did see the Bitcoin. Is this September 8th? No, it's August. Okay, that's what it is. So we can see a little bit that we saw in regards to Ripple also as well, which is also, I think, maybe a possibly really nice pick depending what happens. So on Ripple, we'll see the same thing where we came under, we came back up, a little bit sketchy for what it is, but very beautiful on the trend that is created up into this and pushes up. We don't get anything that starts above. Ranges starts way too high, but we do bounce here. It's still like okay, I think, for an entry point. Knowing August 17th and specifically where the VIX was that day and all that stuff that the VIX was doing, just kind of a quick recap just to look back at that. August 17th was when we started pushing up. We should have been right around here. Yeah, so we can see on the month time frames, we had a convergence of the month 200 and also the week 200 as well right here. So this is the week of that August 17th, and we can see under, above, boom, push. So something that we can kind of look for, we can just see the strength of this, I think. I feel anyway. This is April 6th. The reason why we don't care about this too much falling through is if, I guess we can just do this again and just for reference. If we want to look at April 6th was a really sad day for Bitcoin, really sad day for all the market. We can see that we almost broke through here, and we can really see this was probably one of the strongest places because we managed to come back above 1, 2, 3. When were we above 3? Here we came back under 2. This is when we were back above 3. So these are usually really strong points when we have all 3 under us or all 3 above us. And it's usually a very bad thing when we have all 3 above us. So that just gives a little bit of perspective why this got knocked down over here, even though it did start above. It's always important to understand these time frames. So Doge actually looks really insane. Um, there's going to be two things here, more or less. So the first one is going to be we have this fib level here from Doge to Bitcoin at 34.44. I think it'll still be fine if we can get a. I'm more concerned less with the fib and more so with the 200 smooth average right here at the value of 337 sats. I'm much more concerned with it finding support above this than it does over here. One concern I would have is possibly if we do end above here, and then let's say it comes back down because the idea is that it wants to get bought down here. I would be concerned buying it here, and I would probably wait until it comes back above and then pushes up. I would be concerned about these because they are kind of far away. We can see this fib coming into play. We can see both of them coming into play. So I really like this fib. If someone wants it, you can pause this in a second. It's 14 cents to 14 sats to 140 sats. Just to kind of give you an idea from that perspective. If you want to take it and you want to put it up for your own. So, and what we can see, yeah, so I mean, if we get it from here, I'd still like to see something come up here. I do think it's a little bit better, though. I would be more concerned if we started up here, expecting it to push up as opposed if we started here. I do think this is nice because this is a very strong base to then push up into this, and I think that is really nice from that perspective, as opposed to us being above this, ending and starting above it, looking for support, and then people are going to say, oh, wait, we're failing the fib level, adding extra pressure here, and that could cause some concerns. And that's really the idea of looking at it in that sense. So Doge to Bitcoin looks great, which looks like where a lot of where Doge was coming from, because Doge just didn't look good. I mean, Doge has had a lot of good stuff when it came back up here. Great touch, really on the edge here. A lot of this really isn't Doge to the dollar, it's Doge to Bitcoin. So that's why I think Doge to Bitcoin is something to definitely look at the area that was mentioned. And then we can go to Ripple again, and I'll end it here. I think Ripple is also a really attractive one if it can hit some of these targets. So I'm not going to go too much over Ripple. We can see similarities, what I was saying. A little bit different on how we got down here, but underneath, up, we can see it ranging between here. This is also not this one. This is September 9th, September 8th, September 9th. This is when Bitcoin shot up. So it makes sense when Bitcoin shoots up. It's just going to wreck the Bitcoin price of almost everything. Usually it's almost everything when it does that. And then we can see September 17th. If we remember September 17th on Bitcoin, September 17th was this day. So we could see this. We had the idea about it, everything. It just looked nice to push up from here, regardless of anything. It just looked nice to push up. There was also kind of reversal on the open market, too, that was happening around this time, leading us into the weekend here. Or I don't remember what day September 18th was. It was a weekend or not. No, wait. This would have been a Monday, Sunday, Tuesday. Yeah. So I think this was Saturday, and I believe this was Friday, Saturday, I think. Anyway. So let's go back to here so we can see why this got wrecked down. I just wanted to make that clear because we can see this does start in a nice place, but this is to Bitcoin, so it's important to understand if Bitcoin looks like it's going to shoot up, it's probably going to wreck your altcoin to Bitcoin's chart value down. It doesn't mean it's actually necessarily dropping, because if we look at this around the same time, it does pull it down because it's so aggressive. But respectively, it's I don't think it's as bad. It might actually be as bad. I'm not actually sure. I don't want to get into it. Sometimes it can be really bad. I don't want to get too much into it because there's nuance. I'll say this: if something's about to break out and Bitcoin shoots up, this is probably the worst time that you can have for it to affect something, because it's going to really, really, really wreck your price on whatever's going on. You don't want it to get pushed under something. So, but anyway, we can see that September 17th, we got a little bit of strength on the Bitcoin. I'm not going to go over. I think I went over in another video, but so we got strength here. We can always refer. You can always refer to one of the past videos for it. Long story short, what do we want to see for it? What are we expecting? So I still think there's a decent target all the way up here. We have the week. It's at 31119. I would think it was 3118. It could change a couple, one or two sats here and there. What I'd currently like to see is I can't really say time frame data over here. It's hard for me to say, oh, I want to see a day start above here. I think it's going to be more so with the price action that we get. But what I'd be really interested in a sense is seeing if we can actually end the week for Ripple to Bitcoin actually above, slightly above 3,119 sats. I think that would be really great. Give us a chance to push up. And another interesting thing also is we also have a pretty nice target here on the week that isn't too far away. And some of these actually correlate a little bit. So I'm looking for possible correlation between Ripple ending the week on Sunday night at 5.50798, and I'd also like to see, if possible, we could see a correlation with Ripple to Bitcoin above also as well on Sunday. I think that would be really good to show some of these levels just in case, because I mean, they are pretty. I think this. Well, we can do this if you want the fib. You can kind of do it like this. So this fib bottom bar is 496 sats, top bar is 1098 if you're interested. And then we can and then you can always check it out on your own if you really like this. I think it's pretty decent. Obviously not everything bounces, but I think it's a pretty good average and determinant for a lot of these things, that we can kind of see why we'd want to start above and see if we can push up off of this, or why we at least would want to hold it. And we can see why the week time frame is also important to hold. We haven't didn't end above. We try to come down on here. This was a little close. And then I'm not going to go into this. Well, I'm not going to go into the specifics of it. What I usually do for these is I would check to see what the shorter time frame stuff happened on it. We can see something here, but a lot of times you can also see shorter time frame action there too, to kind of confirm some of these things and make yourself feel a little bit better about them. So 31,020 sats more or less looks really good. So I'm looking for the weekend, or the week switch. And then over here, what I'd be looking for is maybe like a day or a 4 hour, something above the week of significance, maybe even a 12. And we could definitely get something over there. But at the end of the day, I'd like to see a week on Bitcoin on Ripple and at slightly at or above 5.50837. And that's pretty much it. We got most of it out of the way. We talked where we wanted to see Apple, some targets, how we could definitely see some bullishness where, depending where we start, above or under. We're waiting for that rejection on the 4 hour and then coming back under the week for a short. and how everything else looks kind of nice in our Bitcoin target and how we expect the VIX to come back down a little bit. So anyway, if you got any comments, questions, just always put them in chat. Anything you want me to look at, let me know. Take care, guys. Have a great weekend.